Assuming he's not. Good morning. We will note the existence of a quorum, and please let the minutes reflect the names of the members who are present with us. Approval of the agendas, we distributed the agenda by email. Does anybody have anything they want to add to the agenda or change? No additions, no changes. Okay, can I have a motion to adopt it?
So move.
Second,
I'll second.
not hearing any opposition. We will consider the agenda adopted by unanimous consent. The draft minutes were previously circulated. I also circulated an email with a proposed change. Okay, two minor corrections is what they are. One was David, on the term limit question. You were put down as being opposed to the motion to adopt the alternative for 3 total terms, and I'm pretty sure you supported that, correct? You're muted.
Yes, I did.
Okay, so one question was to make clear you supported, not opposed. The other one was just to clarify the language in the summary. Anybody else have any other corrections or objections to the changes to the minutes? Okay, motion to adopt the minutes as revised.
So moved.
Second. Okay. Not hearing any objections, we will consider the minutes as revised adopted by unanimous consent. Okay. Report. I am going to report on some changes we've had. We have had 2 members of our commission resign. CC Grant has moved from Montgomery County to North Carolina. And some of us who worked with CC in other areas had a nice farewell dinner with her the weekend before last. And so we have said she's already moved and relocated, so CC submitted her resignation from the commission. Second, Marcella Samuels has also resigned. Marcella has chosen to take a position on a different advisory committee. And she told me which one it was. It's the Climate, Energy, and Air Quality Advisory Committee, and her appointment confirmation by the council was yesterday. And so I got a very nice email from her last evening saying that she was resigning immediately. And please let my fellow commissioners know that I enjoyed meeting them, and I'm sorry that our term serving together has come to a premature end. So we are down, with Karen's passing, we're down to 8 members out of 11, but a quorum is still 6. And so all I can do is ask that if folks know they're not going to be able to attend, that they let somebody know, either staff or myself, when they know that. And even if it's just the day before, even if you have no advance notice, you just don't feel well. Any advance notice would be better than having 5 or 6 folks traipse into Rockville for no particular reason on a 7:30 on a Wednesday morning. So,
Hey, Jim,
yes.
are they gonna fill those slots, or
Yes.
is this the way it goes for 2 years?
No, the county, so all 3 slots were appointments of the county executive. So the county executive's office has already put up a notice to solicit applications for 2 of the slots. They will change it shortly, put up the 3rd slot. So they're already posted. Now, how long it will take them to actually conduct that process and finish it, we don't know, but they're trying. All right, so that's where we stand on that. I guess I will update you now on I don't know if all of you already watched the June 18th hearing or not, or had an opportunity to. It's online. I don't watch those things. I don't watch myself on video. I don't find that entertaining. I don't know why that is, but it went very well. There were a lot of questions. We were there for quite a while, not quite 45 minutes, but it was long enough for everybody to state their opinion on something pretty much. And the questions were all over the map, and I wasn't really able to get a handle on what a majority was for or against. But it was a really engaging discussion, so I encourage you to watch it. As a result of that discussion, we had two resolutions introduced at yesterday's council session. I attended yesterday. And the two resolutions so yesterday's session was also online, you can see it. But they introduced a resolution, that would put our proposed amendment for the appointments clause in 215, and also they introduced a resolution that would put a ballot question on for our proposed budget amendment under section 305. There was a third resolution that is, I won't say tomorrow, but it's required by law if the petitions for the term limit petition reach 10,000 and they're at now 9,700 or 9,300. If they get 700 more, which seems pretty evident they will. This resolution would just put it on the ballot as required by law and confirm the actual wording of it. So they introduced that resolution as well.
So they're placeholder, right?
As a placeholder, there will be a public hearing. They introduced the resolutions. The purpose of which primarily is there will be a public hearing next week on July 16th on both of those. I would expect some public participation based on the tax one because we have the county tax league, which is very interested in that. So there'll be some public participation. The last time there was a hearing on ballot questions put forward by the Charter Commission, there was only one person willing to come and testify, and that was me. So they don't get a lot of public participation, but on that one, I think the league will probably have several of its members come and testify. And on term limits, I wouldn't doubt that the folks who are proposing the petition would also come and testify. So it should be something to watch. The Board of Elections did announce last week that where they stand in the process for the term limits petition, and I think they put some dates down. I think the deadline for signatures is July 29th. So if you go to the Board of Elections website, you can kind of see the process they put in the follow. But and then I don't know if you folks are following social media either, but there have been a number of there's been some coverage of our report and the supplemental recommendations we made in the media. Bethesda Magazine, which now rebrands itself as MoCo 360, has printed an article. The Tax League, the fellow Gordon Brand, who testified in front of us, who represents the Tax League, wrote an op-ed that Bethesda Magazine, MoCo 360 ran. There are a couple other bloggers that have run things. The two-term folks who have the petition, they have their own little social media page. They have some YouTube videos, which I didn't appreciate very much because I take issue with, they tried to characterize, and I'm not making this up, they tried to characterize our issuance of a supplemental report as illegal, that we acted illegally by choosing to weigh in on the issue, which I think is ridiculous. And frankly, I didn't tell them that. That's where things stand. Anybody have any questions on where things currently stand on our reports and recommendations?
I did a podcast. Someone asked me to, I was interviewed.
Oh,
Yes. So I think you.
I hate politics.
Yeah,
That guy?
someone that used your name.
Well, he used my name because he asked me to do it first and I declined. He got you. I don't know if I gave him your name.
No, it's
He found you.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I came in a little late. I was stranded downstairs. A question I was watching the video of the streaming of the council meeting yesterday, and I was a little confused about what was the issue with the term limits.
All right, I can explain it. Well, luckily we have the council's attorney here when I screw this. But
Are you
They're
switching?
required.
everything?
no, they're required by law.
No.
So if the petitioners get their 10,000 signatures, the Board of Elections has to certify it that the 10,000 signatures are valid and authentic. And, they submitted 12,000 signatures and then like 9,700 of them are valid. But if they get the full 10,000 that are certified by the Board of Elections, it is the council's duty by law to put the question on the ballot. And the county attorney's office is responsible for carrying that out. But it takes a resolution and action of the council to do it. And so what they did is introduce the resolution yesterday that will in fact put it on the ballot if the 10,000 signatures is certified. My guess is the council will be in recess in August, and this avoids them having to have a special meeting during the recess just to take a perfunctory act. So this kind of will take care of it.
Okay, where does that leave our alternative?
Our alternative will not go forward unless somebody on the council wants to introduce a resolution to put that on the ballot. That's up to them. They haven't done so up to now. Time is dwindling and the opportunity to do that is getting shorter. Since it hasn't done it up to now, you can make your best guess on what that means.
Okay.
Okay.
Correct.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And if you watch yesterday's, I don't mean to have my back to everybody else, that's not. If you watch yesterday, you'll see the council was quite gracious and complimentary of our work at the June 18th hearing, but they repeated again. Everybody really did appreciate the amount of work we put into it and the amount of thought we put into it. They considered it helpful, and I think we did a good job, and they did recognize it, and I enjoyed being there. Just it gave me satisfaction just to hear that they found that it was useful. So there are 3 sponsors for the 2 resolutions on the 2 things we put forward under 215 and 305, which is council members Katz, Albornoz, and Juando. How the others feel, I don't know. All right. That takes us to, we're making wonderful time here, aren't we? That takes us to maybe some forward-looking discussions. Dale Tibbetts did me the favor of reaching out to our 5 regional directors, regional service directors, and finding out when their meetings are scheduled for in the fall in September and October, so that we would have an opportunity to see when we might be able to meet with them. It would be a very compact schedule. We'll have to find a way to make this work, but I listed on the agenda, the dates seem to be most likely. A lot of them meet early in the month, so after we recess in August, it seems like early September would probably not be the best time to meet. But we can talk through things in September and figure out how to divide up the work so that we're not all running around to all the meetings. But my thought is maybe October, and if we have to go into early November for one of them, we can do that. But my thought is I will reach out to the Community Advisory Board chair for each of the regions and just say, are you willing to put us on your agenda for October and have us attend and ask your members their thoughts or input if they have any, and see what they suggest if that's something they're willing to do. And then I think after we hear from them, if they have any ideas, because that's, I don't know, there are 10 or 12 people on each of those councils, boards. So that's, 5 times that. So it's getting input from potentially 60 or 70 people who are engaged in their communities, see if they have any thoughts. After that, we could spend some time in September and October throwing ideas out among ourselves to see what topics we want to cover. We will probably hear from some council members at that time. We'll invite our council members to come back like we did last year, or the county executive's office. And then start to develop a list of topics like we did last year around that time, November, December. And then think about in either after the new year, January or February, having the kind of listening sessions we did last year in March, which is it's open season, let the public come in. They can react to our list, or they could give us their own list. And I think that'll put us in March or April in a pretty good position to know what work we want to attack from March until the following year, which will give us a whole year to figure out, what our positions are. That's sort of how I view it, but I'm certainly open to hearing people with other ideas and other suggestions.
Yeah, we were talking about, you and I, about an interim, if some issue shakes out after the listening sessions and hearing from the council members, that warrants some interim report. Has that been done before? Where we, next year for us to, as a commission, issue a report that, puts.
Not to my knowledge. However, there's nothing to preclude you from doing so, if that would be the will of the commission.
And the reason is because I think that, one of the things I've seen this commission historically provides its report around May 1st, and then the council finishes its budget considerations, in May. And then they have, if they have anything on our agenda that they want to consider, they have a very short number of weeks to consider it. It seems to me that if we have very firm ideas and conclusions, and we want to put those out, after 6 months or 8 months of study, if we want to put those out in September, October of next year, as an interim report or as an early report, again, nothing precludes it. It just, it would give them longer to work on it, or to at least consider it. It wouldn't be a rush thing at the end. So, that's an option. We'll still do our annual report when we normally supposed to do it, but just seems to me giving them the opportunity to consider these issues for longer than the 3 or 4 weeks they get in, June and July. It might be nice, depending on what the topics are. So I think it's an option, and the law is very clear. It says we owe them at least one. It says at least, so you're welcome to do as many as we. Any other thoughts? So I thought I'd see whether or not folks have already thought of things they would like to sort of delve into. And the reason is because we're not going to meet again until September, and that is 2 months. I don't know what your all summer plans are. I thought maybe y'all want to sit around all summer instead of taking vacation, just delve into this. But if folks have time over the summer and they want to start doing research, or folks can. I just thought, let's see, are there any topics people off the top of their heads already know that they would like to spend time on? We can talk about it.
I do have one, if I may.
Sure.
Reading the press release from the organization that's supporting the ballot initiative on term limits, they had a statement indicating that they thought it would be unfair for the county to propose any other similar initiative at the same time. And they cite some historical occasions when there have been competing changes proposed, and the question became, well, which one will be the one that is the ruling one if they both are approved? And we've talked about this before in our meetings. And I'm of a mind that when a ballot initiative will change a law, and I'm thinking now of this one related to term limits, then in fact, the voters should be given the full range of possibilities to vote on. So this group wants to limit to 2 term limits. We've discussed changing it to 3, but not necessarily consecutive. We haven't addressed really the potential that someone could serve 2.5 terms by succeeding into an office in midterm when the incumbent was ill or died or otherwise disqualified. But I'm inclined to suggest that a ballot initiative to change term limits should give voters the ability to say, 1, don't change anything. 2, eliminate all term limits. 3, impose a term limit of 2 lifetime elections to the same office. Impose a limit of 3 lifetime elections to the same office, or allow 4 lifetime elections to the same office. So that, it's a pick one of the 4 or 5 choices, and whichever one gets the most is the one that will be adopted.
So the question you raised is closely related to the question that the last commission put on the table as a proposed amendment that the council rejected. But this issue of conflicting questions has been around a long time. It's been studied a number of different times. And nobody has been agreed on what the correct answer is. And so it's not been put on the ballot. I have my own personal view on this, and I testified to it. in 2022. The attorney in Maryland, the issue of conflicting ballot questions has not been addressed by any court. And the Attorney General at the time, which was Joseph Kern, opined on it in 2002, and essentially said, well, no courts had addressed this, but if you look around at other states where they've dealt with this issue, the courts have generally said, if you have two ballot questions and they clearly conflict and you cannot implement both at the same time, then the court has no choice and they both pass. If one passes and one doesn't, it's an easy answer. And that happened in this county in 2020. But if they do both pass and they're conflicting, then they have no choice but to not implement either one of them because the voters have not been clear. And the question is, what do you do about that? What the last commission proposed was that if they both pass and they're not consistent, you just implement one of them, whichever one got the most yes votes. They both got more yes votes than no, but the one that got more yes, you should just implement that one. I explained in my testimony why I thought that was a really bad result. And the council actually agreed. The other option is to say, look, right now we don't have any rule of thumb. At the very least, the charter should give the rule and say, yes, we think a court would throw them both out, but you could be clearer if your charter said that so that you didn't have to litigate that question. So one is to say, the answer is neither one of them is adopted, but at least say so in the charter so people understand it. But California does something, and I looked into this at the time. California does something which is a little unique. I'm not sure if the only state to do it, but there aren't very many that do. Which says what you're saying exactly, which is that if you have, question A and question B, and they conflict with each other, don't put them on the ballot as two separate questions. Put them on the ballot as one question. There's only two ways to get on the ballot. One is by petition, and one is by the council. And the council's not going to put conflicting questions on the ballot. They're going to choose one. So you'll have one, and you'll have a petition. You might have two petitions or three petitions. You can't determine that. But whatever you have, you could formulate it as a multiple choice question so that people don't have to choose between two questions. They could just say, do you prefer A, or do you prefer B, or do you prefer neither, right? Do you reject them all? So you could do that, and that's what California does essentially. It's creative and it makes a lot of sense to me, but again, it would require a charter change, absolutely.
So I'm wondering whether we want to take that up as a question in our next sessions.
Yeah, I've asked that periodically of folks, and I've always been surprised that I don't get much of a, yeah, we should do that. It's sort of like, well, the bigger problem is the 10,000 signatures. This conflicting charter question comes up so often because it's so easy to put up, anybody can put a petition on and get 10,000 signatures. But if you want to stop this conflicting question issue, you make it harder to do that so that, it requires a reasonable number of signatures. And then it's less likely to occur, but it's a different approach to the same issue.
I don't see why you couldn't work on both.
Yeah. Well, the other one, the 10,000, that's a constitutional amendment that has to be done in Annapolis.
That's
There's
a
nothing-
Maryland state thing.
Yeah, and they have to
Okay.
amend the Constitution, and that's been, this commission has studied that issue several times. And
So then I'm with David, because then the only thing is we would have to take charge with the only thing we can control, which is what to do with conflicting ballot issues.
right.
So
Like I said, we wouldn't be the first commission to look at it, but there's nothing wrong with us weighing in and saying, we've looked at the other commissions and they've all been right or they've all been wrong, but it's still an issue, and the folks who sit on these commissions have been telling you this for years, and we're still telling you, you really got to do something about this so that it doesn't just sort of hang over our heads to wait for it to happen and wait for it to go to court. All right. So you all ready to form a work group on that?
I guess we'll have to, I guess. Huh?
Well, I think the answer is you're welcome to start working on it over the summer, and anybody who wants to work with David, speak now or speak later. But if you all want to start discussing it informally and in the work group, you can do that. Or David, you can come back in September and tell us what you've dug up so by then, and then we can form a work group. It's discretionary, whichever way. We have lots of times.
Well, let me work on some research on it at least in the next couple months. So I'll have something for the September meeting.
All right, well, you'll find this topic in multiple reports of this commission over the years, so.
Okay,
Okay, and if you shoot me an email, I can give you some of the materials I've collected, like I do have copies of the Attorney General's opinion in my files. Some other things. So. All right.
Jim, I've got the thing that you and I talked about, which is the reserves and the charter sets reserve standards, which I think are low. So I'd be interested in pursuing that.
Okay. And so where do you think would be a good place to start?
Probably looking at what other counties have, especially of similar size and similar format. You know, I'd want to do some digging first to see what others are doing as far as that goes.
Jeff, are you talking about financial reserves in the
Yes.
county
yes,
budget?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a section, I forget the number off the top of my head, and it seems pretty darn low for a county our size in this day and age with the cost of things. So, and having worked in local governments before, normal rule of thumb is you know, anywhere from 3 months to 6 months or a year, depending on, you know, where you are and what the state rules are. But we're not there, at least not based on the way I looked at it. So I could take a look and see what others are doing.
Then would a tangential issue to that be how the reserves, size of the reserves affects the county's credit rating?
Possibly, that would be tangential, but tangential.
Part of the question, the reason I bring this because I know our county has had the highest credit rating over the years, and someone say, apparently we're doing well enough to maintain that rating, so.
Right, which means we're not having to tap into those reserves, which is all good. You know, I came out of a place that had hurricanes and stuff, and so, you know, having substantial reserves was kind of important because you never knew when you were going to be without everything for a few months. So, but you know, I'll take a look at it, see what it looks like.
And then I think at some point, I think what we did last year was very effective in talking to budget officials, you know, in the council staff, who can, you know, sit down on an informal basis and give us the education that will help us, you know, make a more informed judgment and give us something to weigh in.
if I could chime in, I'm on the board of a homeowners association. And we have 5 buildings. The state, about 2 years ago, maybe 3, passed a law requiring homeowners associations to maintain reserves and has some standards for how much should be in the reserve funds, and also requiring homeowners associations to do a reserve study. I'm not sure that the county does a reserve study, but the reserves are supposed to cover both the contingency of a hurricane and the potential, the very real potential that over time things wear out and fall apart and need to be replaced. And that the reserves are a way that you have a cushion against the need to have a special tax assessment, in essence, to replace a building when it's time to do so, because you have, in essence, saved up the money to replace the building over its 30 or 40-year lifespan. And so I think I think the issue of reserves is something that would be worth us considering, especially since there's a state guideline that applies to homeowners associations.
Okay. Anything else? I mean, there is one topic I fully expect to hear from the public, which is that the Montgomery County Civic Federation is still, from what I understand, very interested in the question of the county's use of the Office of People's Counsel and its long-term funding. The Office of People's Counsel exists in law, but it has not been funded by the council for at least a decade. And I think they find that untenable, and the county executive's office has its own view. So, you know, I fully expect we will hear that issue if we're soliciting public comments. But I also understand that the council itself was looking at legislation that would try to mitigate the issue by making some changes in how the office functions and what the office does to make it more likely that they would want to fund it and use it. I think that there's just some disagreement about the correct role for that office before they fund it. So that might be the subject of legislation, which seems to me would be sort of let's take it off the table for something to address in the charter if it's going to be addressed in legislation. But
Could you explain that function of?
well,
proposed function of the
I
office?
think
Obviously,
the
has to
issue was,
exist.
and I'm going to expect that Howard already knows this issue well from his time, but the Office of People's Counsel it could be there as a source of information to help people who are going through the land use and zoning process understand the process, provide them the information they need. Or they could take a more active role in taking positions on issues and in particular cases. So the question is to what extent do you want it to be a source of information and support, or to what extent do you want it to be an advocate? I think that's where the controversies come out. That's how about
Absolutely. Should they advocate?
So more like an ombudsman versus mediator question?
Source of information.
Yeah, I don't know about mediator. I'm not sure that they've ever anticipated it being a mediator, but literally an advocate to say, you know, the government, the folks in the council, and the folks in the executive branch who want to do whatever, or they want a certain result, and the local homeowners. Civic association is a association of multiple homeowners associations and civic associations. And as the property owners in a particular area that might be affected, they're going, we don't want this, or we want this, and they want the Office of People's Counsel to represent them and to be their voice. And the question is that's not necessarily in the county government's interest to have that opposition, but.
Well, who sets the standards that they would, or that anyone would have to appeal against? Or propose changes to? I mean, there are zoning designations given to areas of the county. But I'm not clear on where the standards for those designations come from. Is that state law or county law?
I'm not sure I can answer the question, but I think that the distinction is between making the legal determinations of whether or not standards have been met, as opposed to decisions which have, political discretion, where they just have to decide that, you can do it under the law, you can do A or B, but you have to decide what you think the best judgment is what's in the best interest of the community. It's, and that's where the advocacy comes in. It's not that one side is against the law and one side is upholding law. It's just people have different views on what's the best result for the community.
Well, I can see there's plenty of areas for conflict. And I suspect that low-income housing is one of the areas that gets a lot of agita. I also would guess that a proposal to construct something which is dangerous or potentially dangerous would also cause a lot of opposition.
That's how you define it, lower housing or affordable housing.
Yeah.
What term you use.
Yeah.
Part of this is also, right, there are impact studies, and the question is if you're doing an impact study, obviously you're going to have people, analyze the impact in different ways. And so, sometimes it comes down to whose impact analysis do you give most credence to, right? And I know our late friend Karen was very active in her community. She was residing in an area where there was a Costco that was going to put in a gas station. I don't know if you've ever seen what happens when Costco and those kinds of places, discount clubs put in gas stations, but the cars line up to get the discount gas. And the question was, whether or not there was sufficient provision in the community for the added traffic and lines of cars that were going to be lining up for gas in Costco, and people going, well, you know, that we live on this street and, you know, having lines of cars lining up for gas every day was not in their best interest in terms of the impact on the neighborhood.
Put it somewhere else.
Well, that's what happened. Actually, they were successful and Costco did not get its gas
They,
station.
they nicked the idea that they gave it, Costco gave up on.
Still got the Costco, but no gas station.
Yeah, this is in Wheaton,
Yeah, was it Wheaton?
which a significant number of people like going to Costco for gas.
Because it's cheap. Wasn't it?
A question about adding another meeting to the schedule in possibly September, maybe October. Marlene's replacement. She's, is she, I forget the person.
Caven West, it's a he.
Yeah, would she be possibly available to us to talk early in the process?
She's a private citizen.
Oh, Marlene,
No, not Marlene.
the replacement,
Yeah,
Caven,
replacement,
Mr.
yeah.
West.
Yeah.
I'm happy to ask him. I'm sure he'd be happy to.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I will tell you, Mr. West invited me to come in and meet him a couple of weeks ago and I did come in. We had a nice chat. He was very interested in our budget recommendation. And he has some background in that particular area and he was trying to think through some things. And one of the things he mentioned was he noticed that our budget process in this county runs at a very tight schedule. They start in the beginning of the year and then it has to get done by May. And he says, well, you know, it takes longer to do it than that. It says, it seems like it's a really compact schedule. He was thinking about, I wonder if there are ways to change the charter that would take that process and elongate it so that there's more time to do it before they get to that deadline in May. And I said, well, you know, it starts with the fact that our county executive and council take office on December 1st. You have an election and they take office on very first Monday in December. You don't get a lot of advance time. You can start the budget process in September or August because they just got there. So it seems to me that starting in January after they take office in December is probably as good as you're going to do. So if you really wanted to address that, you'd have to think about how you would do it in an election year versus a non-election year or figure how to do. But that's to me seems that's probably where the schedule comes from, which is in, you know, most governments, people take office in January and your fiscal year starts in October. I mean, you know, there are different ways to do it. The federal
Yeah,
government.
the dates are established in the charter.
Yeah, they are.
So they.
You have to
those
refigure
are
a lot of things, but
quote unquote changeable.
anytime you start talking about changing election dates, then you have a problem because that's a massive change and board of elections will tell you that. It just, you have to, there's a lot of domino effect if you start changing election dates and taking office.
Yeah, and I wonder about the, you know, when you're thinking about changes, I'm just off the top of my head. The fiscal year is the fiscal year. I don't know whether it's established by Maryland or whether
Yes.
the chart,
It is.
the county establishes.
State.
Is the state?
Yes, for
Just
the July to June.
Okay. So.
Constraints.
Answers that question.
Constraints, yes.
But having the, what way is it, the chief of staff is his title, chief of staff to the
He's
council?
the executive director for the council.
Okay, having him come early in the process, that would be very helpful.
Well, we'll see. I mean, he only got, May 1st is when he started?
Yes.
Yeah, so he's been here a short time. He's still making his way, trying to figure things out. So we'll give him a break, give him a little time to get acclimated.
Right. He also, I mean, he brings experience from the city of Detroit, so he does have a lot of experience, prior experience in local government, just in a different state.
But Jim, if you take office on December 1st, you're already halfway through the fiscal year. You're in essence, you're implementing someone else's budget as soon as you take office. And you have, in essence, that 5-month window to change the budget for the following year to meet whatever new priorities you may want to focus on. So that if you're stuck with a fiscal year that can't change and election time that can't change, you just have to suck it up. It seems like.
There's an element of continuity to that. You know, because it's a legislative process and legislation takes time, so, you know. No matter when you take office, you're not snapping your fingers and having a new budget automatically.
Exactly.
All right, anybody else have anything else they want to suggest? Okay. Other topics that people want to raise that aren't on the agenda? Then I will let staff weigh in. Does the staff have anything they want to comment on or inform us about at this time?
Oh, just a clarification, just wanted to make sure it was clear, your proposed charter amendment on section 215, the appointments, that one is at this time being sponsored by Councilmember Katz and Jawando. Sorry, I want to make sure I get this right. And then your proposal on 305 is being sponsored by Council members Katz, Albornoz, and Jawando.
Okay.
Right,
Yes.
okay, just want to make sure that's there.
Do you all come up with the actual wording of the ballot question, or is that in the resolution that's passed?
It's, the actual wording is in the it's set in the resolution, but also under Maryland law, the language really needs to be certified by the county attorney.
Okay.
County attorney is really the kind of the ultimate say on what the language is, and the county attorney has to certify the language to the Board of Elections by, I believe for this year, I'm pretty sure it's August 2nd.
It's the second time I've heard that date, so.
Okay, August, and right, so, and that's, you know, of course, part of our time crunch as well, that, you know, we have to, it sometimes it shifts because the state constitution, you know, says things like the 90th day after blah, 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 this shall happen. And so the actual dates switch a little bit from election to election, but pretty sure this time it's August 2nd is when the county attorney has to certify the language. So the council, it's kind of a collaboration between the county attorney and the council, and he countersigns our resolutions. That's how we kind of do it in terms of the nuts and bolts. And so right. So that all really needs to be done by the end of July. And the council is meeting on July 30th. It's possible it could take some action related to charter stuff on July 30th. I'm personally hoping they can complete it on the 23rd.
I was
so
gonna
that
say,
we
they're
don't have
also
any
meeting on the 23rd.
last minute things. But the other thing is that I haven't heard of any petitions other than the 2-term one. But the deadline for the petitions is July 29th. So, you know, in theory, we could face a situation of, okay, July 29th, we get a new petition and the council meets on the 30th. So we could really scramble to do a resolution on the 30th and then have the county attorney, you know, act quickly to certify the language.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I had heard the petitioners say that, I think it was right after they got the ruling from the Board of Elections that they had 9,300, that they had already collected a significant number that they were ready to turn in, that they feel pretty confident they already have the number they need, but they still have to turn it in and have it verified. So.
Right. I was told they had at least, you know, 2 more tranches to turn in, and I believe one was 6,000, and then maybe the other tranche was.
That's 6,000 is a lot, not to get 700 out of them, but.
Right.
Jim, could I ask? I'm sorry to interrupt, but could I ask that the lady who's been speaking introduce herself? She's replacing Ms. Oconee? Is
Yes.
that correct? As staff? And I'm guessing I'll see her name on emails in the future, but I'd like to know who is addressing us. If you don't mind either introducing yourself or having the chairman introduce you so that we know who you are.
Absolutely. I apologize for not introducing myself previously. Christine Wellens, one of the legislative attorneys for the council. And yes, pinch hitting for Ms. Oconee, who, as you know, is now our hearing examiner for the Merit System Protection Board.
Thank you.
So happy to send an email so that you have my contact information as well.
Thank you. Could I ask, I apologize, maybe you were talking about this before I got it. You mentioned that we have 2 more vacancies on the commission.
We have
So we have a total of 3 vacancies?
Correct.
What's the deal with that? Is the council planning to replace the people or we
Not
just?
in this particular case,
Okay.
all 3 vacancies are positions that were appointed by the county executive.
Oh, county, okay.
The county executive has already put a public notice out to seek applications for the 2 of them, and they're gonna amend that, I presume, if they haven't already, to add the 3rd, and so. And the requirements will be, we already have, we're down to. There were 6 of us from one party is the max you can have. We had 6, we're down to 4 in one party. You could presume that they'll make an effort to reflect that majority at some point, so that makes it harder to recruit. My point is you could put out a request for public applications, but if you're determined to have a certain number from, one party and a certain number from other, it's a little harder because you're kind of, you only get what you get. You can't.
Okay. Well, ideally, new people are gonna join us. It would be good in the fall, kind of.
No, it would be wonderful to have it done by the fall. But my guess is, it's hard to get people's attention. Late July and August, people are either on vacation, I don't know what deadline, I don't remember that I saw the deadline for the applications. They usually have the Office of Boards, Commissions and Committees has a staff, they actually do this on every day because we have so many boards, committees and commissions in this county, and they usually have a very short turnaround deadline for applications. It's usually like 30 days, that's it. But then they can renew it if they didn't get enough applications. And then there's an interview process, and then there's a confirmation process. So it's frequently takes months. My experience with that office is it can sometimes take 4 or 5 months to get positions filled.
The deadline is July 19th.
July 9th?
19th.
Oh, 19th. Yeah. Yeah, and then with the recess, I wouldn't expect it to be Labor Day. I would expect we'd be talking about this again in October.
And they do list the total number of vacancies as 3.
Is that it? Yeah, with the last resignation letter didn't come in till I think Monday this week. So.
I wonder if we want to look at the charter structure of the commission and rather than make it, 11 for 4 years, have some sort of staggering.
You're welcome to do that. It was changed, I think around 2018. So, I think there was a change dealing with, the number of people from each party or something, but.
If it is an operational problem that the Charter Commission has faced in the past, that people, the 4-year commitment is a significant commitment. So maybe it should be some sort of rolling group of people,
I think that the hard part about this is we have approached this as a group of topics for the first 2 years and a group of topics for the remainder of the term. That's not how every commission has done it. They frequently have taken up topics that have just sat there for the entire time. And so there's been, holdover topics. They start on things and then some get done in the first years and some just continue on for a while. And so to see
we
it.
have kind of a mix of it,
Hmm?
a mix of it. There's a couple that are holdovers from the previous,
Right. Okay. Anybody have anything else? If not, I will ask if folks would like to move to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Hearing no objections, we will consider ourselves adjourned and we will see you in September.
September 11th at 8 o'clock.
September 11th at 8 a.m.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, Judge.